So I think ballpark, because you talked about insurance premiums and then paying out of pocket or paying with insurance. So
Mm-hmm.
ballpark, how much were your monthly premiums for insurance, and then just estimates of how
Okay.
much it would cost if somebody had to access out of pocket.
For when I was working and I got a job and I got my insurance through my employer, I was paying about maybe $120 per month for that every month. And that's about how much is $120? Maybe like about $200,000 every month. 200,000 naira every month. And so when you now, by the time you want to do the IVF, then you have to meet what they call deductibles, and meaning that you have to pay a certain fee before your insurance kicks in. And for me, I had to meet that limit of my out of pay, or what I needed to meet up before my insurance kicked in was about $2,000. you know. And once I meet that $2,000, then my insurance kicks in and takes care of like 70% or 80% of all the fees or of the IVF cycle. So most times you have to meet that $2,000, which is about maybe 3 million naira in Nigeria currency. And then once you hit that figure, then your insurance kicks in and then pays like 80%. So the 20% you still have to pay that, but I can assure you it's minimal. So for everything, maybe if you're paying out of pocket, you're self-paying. Honestly, you'll be needing from between 15 to $21,000 for that, and that's about maybe 21 million something. But if you're using your insurance, because you have to take into consideration your medications and every other thing, so many procedures that they might ask you to do. So if you're using going through your insurance, it's usually between $3,000 to $7,000, and you know, yeah, like 10 million naira or so. So it's, yeah, like 3,000 to 10,000, which is like 4 million naira to 16 million naira. Yeah, so that's what I had to pay out of for my copay.
Yeah.
I hope that
And
answers your
you mentioned,
questions.
you touched on a good point.
Mhm.
Oh no, absolutely. And I do like the fact that you talked about deductibles, because that's
Mhm.
something people don't necessarily understand
Mhm.
with the way the US health system is
Work.
structured.
Mhm.
That you pay your monthly premiums, but when you're accessing high cost services,
Mhm.
you have to meet a certain deductible. So
Yes.
Kemi, we'll turn this over to you now. From your experience in Nigeria, how did you, access services, especially when you talk about, public versus private sector? But then importantly, what should couples who are, you know, trying to access services in Nigeria know?
Okay. All the four IVFs I did, all the four procedures I did four were in private clinics though. So I may not know so much about public, the government
Mhm.
clinic sector, but generally, I would say that they should expect a lot of love, a lot of care, a lot of support to start with, because all the places I've been to, that is what I have received. Because they treat IVF clients like special people because of the peculiarity or the whatever it is that is attached to fertility, the emotions and all of that. And then talking about the financial aspect now. Do you want me to talk about the financial aspect now? Talking about it, okay. Talking about it, it depends on the clinic. Okay, have been to the first clinic I did the first IVF was about 2 million naira, for that. Subsequent ones, there was one that was like 3.5. There was one that was like 6.5 million naira, that 7 million naira. So it could be as low as 2 million naira and it could be as high as maybe 10 million naira, depending on where you are doing your IVF. And the thing is that once you pay that amount, that IVF, that procedure money, it covers all your medications for your IVF, for your procedure, till your test is done, your pregnancy test is done. So you don't need to worry about, except if there is an emergency or there's something that came up and they need to fix or something. In one of the cases, I had polyp on my cervix that they needed to remove. So I had to do that outside my IVF fee. So go to remove that separately, and that was another cost entirely. But once you make payment for your procedure, it covers all the medications, all the injections that you take, and all of that for your procedure. So that's how it works here in Nigeria.
That's really good to know. And I do like the fact that you both are very open about cost, because at the end of the day, people need to be prepared for how much it would cost. So now, still focusing on, accessing care, and starting with you, Bukola, is what were some of the things you had to prepare, like some practical steps? Earlier on, you mentioned, IVF, you didn't know that you would have to prepare this whole journey, harvesting eggs and all of that stuff. But from a seeking healthcare standpoint, what are some practical steps that you had to take to prepare for this journey?
Yeah, so IVF takes time. You need a lot of time for IVF. When I was doing my IVF cycles, I really wished I was self-employed because you can't even, all your time goes into that, especially when you're working and you have to be at work. You keep taking time off, 3 hours, 4 hours, because each visit takes about 2, 3 hours. So you need a lot of time. You need a lot of time on your hands. Your vacation are not yours, honestly, because you might want to do an IVF maybe in July, and then you start preparing for it from March, and then before you know it, so many things begin to unfold. They might tell you, just like Kemi said, a polyps. You can see that. I was always having cysts on one of my ovaries. There was a time my tubes were not patent. I had to take out the right tube. So many things that you are not even prepared for. And I'm like, I just want to do IVF, but it's not like that. It's not like that. There are so many procedures that you might need to do that it's not even stated why you wanted to, when you signed on to do that IVF. So many things might just come up and you have to take care of them. You might have an infection, you have to use antibiotics for like 6 weeks, and then you go back and do the test to be sure that is all cleared up. So for people, don't say I want to do my IVF in the next 2 months. It doesn't work like that. You're going to be disappointed.
Mm,
So you have to prepare
mm,
that you need a lot of time for IVF. So that's one thing I think that people should know. And another thing is that, I already mentioned it, but I would like to expand on it also, that there will be surprises. Things that you didn't even know that was happening, that is happening in your bodies, it will just spring up. I can remember the IVF that led to the birth of my son finally. The doctors told me you can't come in here again until you take out the fibroids. I already did a fibroid surgery in 2014, and then they grew back again. I had to do another, because at that point I was looking like I was 18 weeks pregnant. So they said we can't do this IVF. So I had to go
mm.
back to my OBGYN doctor, take out the fibroids, and then I was told that even when I take out the fibroids, I can't do any IVF cycle until 6 months later. You can imagine waiting and waiting and waiting. And then thankfully, while I was waiting, I told my doctor that, you know what, instead of me just waiting for me to heal up, let me just do another egg retriever and, freeze my eggs. And good thing is, like I would like to mention also, please, if you can freeze your eggs, freeze your embryos. It saves you a lot of time. It saves you money. It saves you time and money. Freeze your embryos. Thankfully, when I got to the US, I was told that I could do that, and then I pay like $80. When I started paying, it was like $50 every month for the freezing. I think now I pay $80 per month. It's worth it, because if I need to do another IVF now, I don't have to start with all of the process, like the follicular tracking, medication, and all of that. I just go straight to the transfer once they feel that I'm okay to do that. So please be prepared to allot time. Be prepared to freeze your embryos. Be prepared to do other procedures that was not even on the list, that was not on the table when you signed on for IVF. Those are the things I will tell my audience to be prepared for.
Thank you, Bukola. So, Oluwakemi, over to you.
just like Bukola said, the first thing ever is time. You need a lot of time um to go through your procedure. You have to be in and out of the clinic, like that. And then you need to plan yourself. You need to plan yourself. I remember one year like that I I had an event coming up in May, and I didn't think about it. I just started my procedure, and unfortunately, I could not attend that event because, and it was very very important for me. So you need to calculate, if possible, you can sit with your doctor and then calculate all your timings.
Mm-hmm.
Know what to expect and when to expect them. Know, like that, so that you don't have to break in between and say that I have a trip for so 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 and so, or something. I have something important or something.
Mm,
In fact, every other important thing become less important when it comes to IVF. So it is those things that will end up bowing down for IVF. So you need to plan yourself well. You need to be ready for the whole process, for the whole procedure. Because there's a 2 weeks window where you need to rest. You need to plan that too, and don't think that you quickly want to juggle one or two things. If it's worth doing at all, it's worth doing well. So time is very very important. So that is just the basics and the baseline of everything. And then when some other things show up, like we have said, like my case of the polyp, when some other things show up, you need to be ready too financially. Don't think, like in Nigeria, like I said earlier, that once you pay for your procedure, you are good. You still need to have some money. Oh. It's good to have some money, because in case where something show up, and then those doctors will just be like, um, madam, you need to do this tomorrow. They might not even tell you that this is how much it costs. Okay, you ask them,
mm,
okay, I have to do this tomorrow. So how much does that cost? So because that was what happened to me when I had to remove the polyp, because we're already in the process, and then I can't remember at what point in particular that they saw the polyp, but it was in the process. So it now became like an emergency. You need to remove this polyp like in 2 days so that we can continue the process.
mm.
So please have some money for that kept somewhere in case there's something that you need to do urgently, and that.
Yeah. Very practical tips. Timing, be open-minded, have money, and we're going to delve into the financial planning aspect of it just because that is very, very important. And it will be interesting to see how you both share your experiences from two different contexts. And it's just great to be able to hear that, sometimes that journey, be very open to the fact that you have no clue what surprises, await you, and to have a strong support system. Money is king, they say. So I would want you both to eventually elaborate on how you plan financially, how you prepared. You both talked about timing and how you were able to plan all of that. So to you, Bukola, you had talked about deductibles earlier,
Mm-hmm.
insurance, private out of pocket. Could you walk us through how you were able to plan that
Okay.
from the
Uh,
time you got to the US up to the point you got your last service, how you and your spouse were able to plan financially for it.
all right. Thank you. So, since I said I mentioned that I got my insurance through the first insurance I got was private. And at that time, I called the insurance company and I told them that I asked them if they covered IVF. And they said yes. So, because they covered IVF, I was able to get that treatment from them. And that time, I was paying about $300 every month for my fee, for my monthly fee. And at the point where I needed to now go in for the IVF, because it was private insurance, I was paying all of the insurance myself. It was quite expensive for me. So then for me to go through a cycle, it was about almost $6,000 that I had to pay in total. And the way this insurance works in the US is when you have your insurance, you know, they even though they are covering your IVF, there are certain things that they will still not cover. For example, they will not cover freezing of embryos. They will not cover. There are some procedures that they will tell you we're not going to do, like genetic testing. They will not cover that. That was the time I did ERA. It's the procedure is just about timing the right time to the right
Mm.
window to implant the embryo. The insurance didn't cover that. So I had to pay out of pocket about almost $1,200 for that. So yes, you have insurance, but they will still tell you that it's not everything they are going to cover. So that was for the private. So when I got a job through my employer, when I got a job, I had to get an, another insurance through my employer. And fortunately for me, the first job I got, they were family oriented, family friendly, and they actually dedicated some money to IVF. So that really reduced a lot of our burden. And then I was still paying my monthly fee for the insurance. And then by the time I wanted to do my IVF, most times I was paying between $2,000 to maybe $3,000, and that included my medication. And that should be around 2 million to like 5 million or so. So that included my medication, that included most of the things I wanted to do. But if the clinic I was working with, if they found something else, they will have to ask the insurance before they go ahead and treat. So most times, even though the insurance covers the IVF, I still have to get authorization from the insurance before I go ahead. Because if I don't get the authorization from my insurances, then the clinic will not go ahead with the IVF treatment or procedure, and then they will have to tell you to sign a form. If you really want to go ahead without the authorization, you have to sign a form that what, if my insurance does not pay, then you have to pay. So those are the things that I had to do. Then also, if you don't have, so the best thing, honestly, is just to have an insurance through your employer. That really saves you a lot of cost. And even I mentioned that you have to meet a certain deductibles before your insurance kicks in. Most
Mm.
times, my deductible is always $2,000. That's about like 3.2 million naira. Once I hit that, then my insurance comes in and takes care of 80% of what is left. And yes, so what do I mean by 80% of what is left? So the remaining 20%, I was going to take care of it myself. And that includes, when you're in your IVF cycle, you go to your doctors almost every time. Like almost every day, you have ultrasounds, you have blood works, you have all of this. Each visit, I was paying $25. That was my own copay. That was my 20% that was remaining that I had to cover. So, and $25 was like 42,500 naira. So each visit, if I was going every day for 30 days, I was paying $25 every day. So that was my own copay. I can assure you it was a huge relief, because if I didn't have insurance, it could have been like 200, 220, $250. So I was really grateful that it was just $25 I was paying for each visit, because I was doing scans, I was doing HSGs, and they were really good procedures. That if I had done all of these procedures without insurance, an HSD could cost me almost like $700. That's almost like 2 million naira. And I honestly, if I count how many HSGs I have done in the US, I'll be saying almost like 30 to 50, probably, you know. So you can imagine how much my insurance had saved me for all of that. So yeah, so it's actually good to have insurance in the US if you want to do your IVF. And then you have to consider, if you're using a donor egg, your insurance will not cover that. They won't cover donor eggs. So if you're going to get a donor, you have to pay for that. Honestly, getting a donor egg is really, really expensive. I don't even know how much. I have no idea. And also another thing is, if you're going to, yeah, so yes, though I mentioned there's something that came to my mind now. Then also, if you're going to go for surrogacy, most insurances will not cover that. They will only cover surrogacy if your doctor, you know, says that you're unable to carry your child. And before
Mm.
that doctor says that, you wait for 1 million years.
Yes.
So there was a time we were thinking of surrogacy too, but the insurance will not cover that, because my doctor never said I couldn't carry my children myself or my child myself. So those are the things you also have to consider. That okay, I can remember there was a time also when I was having miscarriages like back to back. They wanted me to do genetic testing. My insurance will not cover it, and that was about $3,000 at that time. That was like 4.8 million in naira just for
Mm.
genetic testing, and they were telling me that they can't test more than one embryo, and I had like five embryos. So if they test that one, so I'm like, okay, once if you test that one and it's not okay, my money is gone. They said no, they can't test more than
Mm.
one or so. They have,
Mm.
so those are the things you have to also put into consideration. Apart from just saying, oh, okay, my insurance has covered everything. No, you still have a lot of things that your insurance will not pay for, that you have to, pay by yourself. So, like I mentioned earlier, if you want to do insurance, if you want to do IVF in the United States, and you're not using an insurance, honestly, be ready for 15 to $25,000, and that's about almost 21 or 25 million naira. And then if you have
I counting.
insurance, yes, that's like probably between $3,000 to like $7,000, which is really manageable. And then sometimes you get discounts. You can pay instrumentally. So those are the flexibilities that you get. Because I was a good customer at the hospital I was using. So they didn't used to rush me for payment. Sometimes they will send my bills like even after like 3 months after I had done the IVF. So
Mm.
we had enough time to save up to pay all those bills. You know the way their bills come in. One will come in, it will just show you one part. Maybe one HSG you did like 4 months ago. You will see like maybe just like $100. Thank God. But you don't get that lump thing. That's that lump list that this is all the amount you owe. Because
Mm.
for each procedure, it has to go through your insurance. Your insurance will pay their own part, then it's the remaining 20% that will come to you that you have to pay. So if you have insurance, you cannot just say, how much is my IVF cycle? I want to pay for everything. No, you can't do that, because insurance will have to take their own 80% bill, then it's the 20% that they will pass on to you, and that takes a lot of time. So sometimes I might have done an IVF in January, I'm still getting my bills by July, because insurance is here to do all the internal things they need to do. So that's the
Mm.
good thing about using insurances. You don't have to pay at once. But if you are paying out of pocket, you are going to get everything, because they know the prices of all these things. They have the cost and all of that. So there's nothing like you have to pay. And I'm sure you have to pay them upfront or maximum before the procedure is over. So
Mm.
I think that's all I can say. And another thing is, I would advise that freezing your embryos is very important, because it reduces the cost. Because
Mm.
when you freeze your embryos now, you have removed all these consultation fees, embryo follicle tracking, all of that. All you do is just move to the embryo transfer thing. So once you freeze your embryos, just go to the hospital. You can tell them, I want to do my transfer next week or next month. They will just make sure they do some investigations to be sure that you're ready. And once you're okay, you go in, do your transfer, and that's all. And really, embryo transfer is the cheapest.
In
Honestly,
the
even
whole
out of
process.
pockets, yeah, out of pockets, it's if you have embryos already, even if you are paying 100% by yourself, I don't think it's more than $6,000. But
Mm. Mm.
with my insurance, most times it's like 1,200, maximum of $2,000. So, and that's what I've been doing for the past almost 3 4 years, because I had a lot of embryos that was frozen,
That you
so
pass.
that
Okay.
helped. So when you're going to do that, make sure that you freeze your embryos. It saves you a lot of money, and you don't
Thank
have to
you.
put so much burden on your body. All right.
You have elaborated so well, and you were so in depth about the process, the different considerations, finances. And I think this is what people really need to know before they go on this journey. That is what a lot of people do not understand.
Some other clinics, I had one of the clinics where I had one IVF. They have like a package. If you have paid for a full cycle and then it fails, they do like a rerun for you at half the price of that of a full cycle. So they already tell you when you come to the clinic that okay, this is the amount you have to pay. Okay, let's say the full cycle for IVF is 3.5 million, and as far it fails, you can come back for a rerun. You can come back for a rerun immediately or at your own pace, maybe in a few months, 2, 3, 4, 5 months. Usually they will advise that you come back almost immediately.